And I'm so pleased to have with me David Barcos. David is an author, a musician, as well as a therapist and an NLP expert. David coaches a wide range of individuals from both within the business field and the private field, right?
Yes.
So I thought I had just come for the most wonderful workshop with David. I wanted him to share some of his wonderful tips so that we can all live a more successful life.
That's a good goal.
So David, can you explain first what is NLP?
Okay, NLP is a model that was created in the 70s, and basically what it does is study successful people to find out what they do, so then those strategies, the strategies that these people that are extraordinary, can be then taught to everybody so they can improve their performance.
What does NLP stand for?
NLP stands for, N is neuro-linguistic programming. So neuro is obviously the nervous system. Linguistic has to do with how we communicate, not only through words, but the non-verbal communication. And then programming means how we learn, how we program ourselves through language to do whatever it is that we do.
And from your talk, I learned that NLP is very much integrates what we're learning in brain science of how our habits, thoughts, and beliefs are wired into our brain. So how does that work with maybe creating new habits and new wiring in the brain so that we can move ahead and not be hindered by the past?
Okay, that's a very good question, especially when so many people think that the reason they cannot move forward is because of the past that they've lived. And the good thing about NLP is that we study the structure of how people think. So once we understand what somebody does inside their brain to manifest a behavior, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, then we're able to manipulate and to change that pattern. For example, some people feel really bad about themselves because they're yakking throughout the day why they can't do something, they're no good, they will never amount to anything, and they have a voice like, you'll never reach your goals. Who do you think you are to want that? You know, so NLP, when we use NLP, we can, number one, recognize what the person is doing and how they're creating that state that gets them stuck in a particular place in their life. And then just by changing the way people talk to themselves and using a more pleasant voice or maybe a humorous voice, you never will amount to anything. By them changing their internal dialogue, they can change the way they feel. And when you change the way that you feel, you change the way you act, and you produce new results.
Yes, it seems like that from what you were saying, that emotion is at the foundation or one of the major keys for reprogramming. Is that right?
Yes, emotion is the point out of which everything else comes from. For example, do you act the same way when you're angry than when you're completely in peace and in harmony with yourself? Obviously not. And what's the difference in behavior? Well, the difference is the way you feel. So when you change the way you feel, you can change the way you act. And when you understand how to activate and connect to those emotions that really bring out the best of you, then you can do that consciously instead of waiting for those moments to appear out of nowhere. And NLP allows us to really have a very clear route to how to create those ongoing, positive, powerful states.
Yeah, that was a big takeaway that I got from your workshop today. If a person wanted to do an NLP workshop or a course, could they learn something in a day, or how long, just to get them going with practical tips?
Sure, absolutely. I do introduction to NLP courses, one-day courses, and people can learn the basic, more fundamental information that from which then we can create some very important and transformational positive changes. Yeah.
Okay. You're saying don't focus on the past. Like, we can tend to rehash, this happened and that happened, and maybe we go see someone and we're busy talking about all the problems that happened in the past, but you don't see that as a positive.
Well, the past it's useful because it also contains the resources that have gotten you to where you are today.
Right.
So the past is made out of, well, certain experience that some people might categorize as negative or painful, but it also contains our successes and our achievements, and especially some very powerful emotional states that then we can rescue from the past and bring those resources to the present, so we can, at the present, create a new reality, a new state of mind, and a new direction from which to move forward.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. For example, I've worked with high executives that they feel very nervous when they need to speak to their team or maybe a group of people or give talks in public. But then they can speak to their kids in a very calm, direct, powerful way and transmit ideas very clearly and be very effective. So what I teach them is how to use those resources that in some other area of their life are very successful, in this case in the family life, and then bring them into the professional arena. And since he already has those resources, it's just a matter of making that connection.
Right, because everyone has areas where they're strong in. It's a matter.
Absolutely. There's one assumption. In NLP we have different assumptions that we decide to adopt to better our performance, and one of them is that everybody has all the resources they need to make positive changes. So by going back into the past and identifying what those resources are, then we can create changes that are really, really powerful.
Okay. So it's how you look at the past.
And how you use it, exactly.
Right. Okay, very interesting. Now, for someone, let's say, who's watching the video and would like to take away perhaps a few tips that they could use right now as far as their language that they use when they're speaking to themselves, or their emotions, you know, when they're feeling down, or they're finding that they're not able to motivate themselves in a way that they should or could be doing.
Yes.
What are some tips that they could use to become more motivated and inspired, just on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, a very simple frame of reference is that whenever you establish and you want to achieve a new success, a new level of performance, or whatever it is, a new goal, just start by two questions. And they're very simple, they're very fundamental, but that will change the way you move forward. For example, the first question is, what do you want? And I know it sounds very simplistic, but I have, when people come to see me in my practice, they come in and they tell me, oh, I've been depressed for the last 5 years. And they begin to tell me all this narrative and all these things that they've been experiencing. And I say, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but let me ask you a question. What do you really want instead of that? So what that does is it creates a new direction, right? And then the second question is, how will you know you've got it? So number one, no matter where you are right now, ask yourself, okay, what do I want? What do I really want? And number two, how will I know I've got it? Then, that's the first step. Second step is, where am I right now in relation to what I want? And that's going to create a distance between where you are right now and where you want to be. And that distance, we could consider that as being the problem. So that distance, metaphorically speaking, is going to determine what resources are going to need to go into that, so you go from where you are to where you want to be. So simple tip, what do you really want? Number two, how will you know you've got it? Number three, where are you right now in relation to that? And number four, what resources do you have right now that you can immediately put to use? And then what other resources you might need to find in order to make sure you achieve the success you want.
Excellent. And maybe you could just refer for a moment to when you're saying that you have to be clear on what it is that you want, and how do you know that you've gotten there.
Yes.
And what you mentioned in the workshop is the emotional nature and our senses.
Yes.
To try to use our senses to really know what would it be like if we've achieved what we wanted. Could you just address that so people are clear about that?
Sure. You talked about before motivation, and I think motivation is a key factor whenever you want to achieve anything. And the reason you want to really answer that question, not only what it is that you want, but how will you know you've got it, because in order to describe how you will know you've gotten it, is you need to use sensory language. In other words, it's not the same as saying, okay, I want to lose weight, then I want to lose 10 pounds by December 1st, and how will I know I've got it? Because I will put my blue jeans and I will feel there's like 5 centimeters space in around my waist, or 5 centimeters, and whenever you describe reality in a very specific and sensory way, what that does is it creates a full body response. And whenever you're feeling a full body response and you're focusing on whatever it is that you want, that's going to create a very strong pull forward, or what we call motivation. If your description of whatever it is that you want is very vague, very ambiguous, you will not feel motivated. So that's why we need to really have a lot of detail when we're thinking about our goals.
Right, and the more we can immerse ourselves emotionally, how does it feel? What does it smell like? What would we taste?
Exactly. What will I see? What will I hear? What will I feel? What will I smell, taste? Who will I be with? By when do I want it? And the more specific data you can gather around your goal, the more powerful emotion you're going to be able to generate within you.
I think treatments or therapies or approaches like NLP are so valuable now because we know about the brain. We used to think the brain was hardwired at a certain age and we were kind of stuck, and now we realize we can always change. There's always a potential there.
Absolutely, no matter what happened to you in the past, and I've worked with people who had suffered really horrible experiences, we have a technology that allows us to really create some positive and amazing changes.
Wonderful. It was such a pleasure to come to your workshop and listen to you. I learned so much. I really did.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us and listened to us. And we're coming to you from the 39th Annual International Conference. Bye for now.